Welcome to this Make-A-Medic tutorial on cardiac action potentials. This is a crucial step in fully understanding electrophysiology and interpreting ECGs. Let's begin by recapping the path of electrical activity through the heart and the key structures involved. The sinoatrial node is a bunch of specialized cells that generates the initial electrical impulse that then propagates through the heart. It's located within the right atrium. The impulse will travel across the atria before pausing at the atrioventricular node. It will then pass along the bundle of His, the bundle branches, and eventually the Purkinje fibers, which causes ventricular systole. Let's take a closer look at the sinoatrial node. The cells of the sinoatrial node are specialized to initiate impulses on a regular basis and respond to influences such as changes in autonomic activity. The impulses will then be conducted along the contractile cardiomyocytes, which have a different type of action potential that we'll go on to talk about soon. If you zoom even further in, the electrical activity that enables the heart to function manifests in the movement of ions across the cell membrane. We'll first look at how the action potential works in pacemaker cells of the SA node. There are a couple of key points to make at this stage. All of these ions have a positive charge, and there are more positively charged ions outside the cell than inside the cell. The term polarized is used to describe this difference in charge across the membrane. When the charge difference flips over, it is described as being depolarized. And essentially, an action potential is when the flipping of this charge difference propagates along specialized cells. The charge difference can be quantified as a voltage in millivolts, and at rest the membrane potential of pacemaker cells is around minus 60 millivolts. An important point to bear in mind going forwards is that there are two factors influencing the movement of ions across this membrane. One is the concentration gradient. For example, sodium would naturally move down the concentration gradient into the cell. As these ions carry a positive charge, there is also an electrical gradient down which the ions can travel. At rest, as there are more positively charged ions outside the cell than inside the cell, the ions will move down this gradient into the cell. These two gradients are collectively referred to as the electrochemical gradient. So let's look at the pacemaker potential in action. There are three main ion channels that regulate the pacemaker potential: the funny sodium channels, calcium channels, and potassium channels. Initially, the funny channels open and allow sodium to move into the cell down the electrochemical gradient. This will begin to reduce the charge gradient across the membrane, and hence the voltage will become less negative. When the voltage gets to around minus 40 millivolts, the voltage-gated calcium channels open. This allows calcium to flood into the cell down the electrochemical gradient, causing depolarization of the membrane. Once the membrane potential reaches a peak of around plus 10 millivolts, the sodium and calcium channels will close and the potassium channels open. This allows potassium to move down its electrochemical gradient out of the cell, thereby bringing the membrane potential back to around minus 60 millivolts. The original ion gradients will then be re-established by active transport channels. Once the action potential has been initiated within a pacemaker cell, it needs to conduct to neighboring contractile cardiomyocytes. This happens through gap junctions. These are intercellular connections that allow ions to leak between cells. Here we have a depolarized pacemaker cell on the left and a contractile cardiomyocyte at its resting membrane potential on the right. Some of the positively charged ions from the pacemaker cell will leak through the gap junctions into the neighboring cell. This causes an initial degree of depolarization. So if we focus on the contractile cardiomyocyte, you can see that the resting membrane potential of the cell is around minus 90 millivolts, but the influx of ions through the gap junction from a neighboring cell brings this up to about minus 70 millivolts. This triggers the opening of voltage-gated sodium channels, which allows the rapid influx of sodium into the cell. This then causes depolarization of the membrane, and as the membrane potential reaches around minus 40 millivolts, slow L-type calcium channels also open, allowing calcium ions to to trickle in. Once the membrane potential reaches around plus 40 millivolts, potassium channels open, sodium channels close, and calcium channels remain open. During this phase, the initial efflux of potassium causes early repolarization of the membrane, but then the calcium influx balances the potassium efflux, resulting in the plateau phase, where the membrane potential remains relatively constant. Some of the calcium coming into the cell during this phase will bind to receptors on the sarcoplasmic reticulum, causing calcium-induced calcium release. The calcium released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum will then trigger contraction of the cardiomyocyte to complete the excitation-contraction coupling. Eventually, the calcium ion channels will close and the ongoing potassium efflux will bring the membrane potential back down to around minus 90 millivolts. The longer refractory period of the cardiomyocyte is essential in preventing the cells from going into tetany and to ensure that the passage of the impulse is unidirectional.